Welcome back to episode 70 of the Football Fanatic podcast. You're joined this evening by myself and Dan, and we're going to take you through the weekend games and a bit of preview of what the upcoming Champions League fixtures. Dan, how's all with you? Have you okay after the weekend? You haven't
I'm
tasted
all right.
lost in the Premier League in quite a while.
No, no. It's some of the defending. I think and no offense at Lone Town, but I've been at Lone Town games in the past where they've defended better in that 15 minute spell than Liverpool show. But no, great to have it back. Between the midweek games as well and the weekend there. Sure, it's kind of, I suppose, all hands to the pump now. We have Champions League this week, and then into the home stretch now of all the remaining competitions. So it's great. It's great to have it back. And yeah, there
Well,
seems
it
there
is.
might be one or
It,
two revivals in I think that top four race or top five race I think is now really been blown wide open, and we touched on it. I think that one, and I had a small bit of hope that Ipswich could get us a revival. Unfortunately, came to pass at the weekend, but still I think a bit left to play for, and a bit of juice left in the Premier League, but not too much. I don't think. Same time.
no, and it's kind of a strange season in that you feel like relegation is sorted. You kind of feel like champions is sorted. Um, and then it's that middle fifth, fourth down to like ninth that there's just this absolute scrap going on for Champions League and Europa League football. And it's great. Like that's actually really entertainment to see. Like the quality of teams that are in that area. Like the
Yeah,
performances we're able to put in are just insane. But we'll
I
start.
think
We'll get the most.
go on there.
Go on. What we gonna say then?
No, I was going to say with like I think I really tuned into it when I was listening to the fan debate last week, and your man was talking about how much money. Like I obviously know it's worth a lot, but he was talking in region of at least 200 million, and that's even before you even win a game. If you win a game, they're worth a couple of million a piece. So like if you put that in with what we're dealing with in regards to financial fair play rules, whether or not that may change again, but at the moment, like it always was massive, but I think it's even more under the spotlight as to that revenue on how much it can go. It can either maybe some of the smaller, lesser clubs, if they were to manage to nail it, for some of the big ones, even like talking about the Europa League, if United or Spurs are to win that, like how much of a difference it makes the summer and being able to plan going forward. So I just think it is. I don't know. I've always felt it's, of course, it's always been big, but for some reason this season, with the amount of teams that are in the mix and with the financial rules as they are, it seems that it's going to be make or break potentially for a few. I don't know. That's just how I feel about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, but it also shows you how a well-run club can, if they manage to survive in the Premier League, how they can just make so much money. Like we think of a team like this, like Bournemouth spent 60 million on Evan Nielsen this summer in a stadium of about 14,000 a week in the Vitality. Like that, you wouldn't like without the revenue that's coming in from external from the Premier League and from TV rights and extra, etc. Like there's no way Bournemouth should really be competing at that level. And look, I know
No,
they've slipped off a little bit, but it's just kind of a microcosm of there's such a collection of clubs like that have developed that the middle section of the league is completely so strong, completely different when when you were growing up, you knew, oh well, that's a definite 3 points. If you're to do Super Six like 15, 20 years ago, you were like, yeah, that's definitely like
you'd have a
I
hundred
felt
grand
it
in
was
the
much
back
easier for
burner.
yeah, it was back when I had my teletext up. I knew it was going to happen, but
Yeah.
no, this it's just this middle section is so intriguing. I think this year, and there's so many clubs that are just vying to be that European team, and try and make a part of their club to take them to the next level. So, we'll get the boringness game of the weekend out of the way, Dan. Honestly, it was pathetic. Like we were all messaging each other, this is boring, this is whatever. Like
I
Howard
just
was
needed a
at least
goal.
nice to Man United. He said, like Joe, they were good. Look, they were solid. They've definitely got more solid. But
Yeah.
by God, this had no bite. It was the most drab, boring. What like as a neutral, I found that as a United fan, I found it and then we kind of pushed a little bit towards the end, and there was a scrap or sniff of chances here and there, maybe in the end of the first half, and again in the second half. But I felt if anyone was going to score, United pushed an awful lot more than City to get that
Mm.
goal, and even then we were huffing and puffing, and there wasn't a whole lot happening. As a neutral, what did you like? Would you be thinking along the same lines, or had you?
Yeah, I did a message into the first message was like, just need the goal. There's a game where it's sailing along, nothing happening. There was no real cut, real chances at all. Like I think one of the most exciting moments in the first half was in the first 30 seconds. Garnacho nearly got through, and that was, there wasn't much to shout about in that first half at all. And I do feel it really, as I reflected back on it, though, I think when you look at it, it probably is a poor reflection on City, really. Given that they spent 200 million in the summer, or sorry, in January, they spent a fair chunk of change. I think have they gone down a position since they would have spent that money? Like they're not, like it's not as if the money has really. I think I think Nomar Much is doing well of the signings that have come in. But like I think it's a poor reflection considering United have nothing to play for in the league. And as much as you want to try and sugarcoat and say that 70 odd thousand at the game, and the long and the short of it is all of their eggs. We're coming up Easter time, and all of them eggs are in that Europa League basket, and that's the fact, and
It's the
that
truth.
has to
Yeah,
be.
it's the truth of the situation. Like, yeah,
So so
and
so
City
as a
need the Champions League. So you like,
yeah.
there's no, I this was a really strange. I have to question. That coming like there was times under even Sir Alex or Klopp or even back in Wenger's time where there was players that were probably past it, but the manager still held that loyalty. And
Mm,
I just felt looking at that midfield that it was a pick out of nostalgia and loyalty, picking those three and the age profile of that midfield, as opposed to you had like that. If you're on about summer signs, you've got Gonzalez, who, look, he's not the finished article, but there's an awful lot of potential there. He reminds me
mhm.
a little bit of when Rodri came. He's not quite the same level, but when Rodri came in, he didn't tear it up instantly. But he's good at reading the play and getting himself in position. He's just probably getting out muscled a little bit more than you'd like and things like that. So there's potential there. But like the engine like that was clearly lacking in that midfield. And Gudangan is not supposed to be playing the amount of games he's playing. He came back
No,
to be a supplement and bring on for 20 minutes at the end and use his
yeah.
creativity. It's just I just feel like that element is there with Pep Guardiola and this team.
Yeah, I think so. And I suppose just to kind of clarify my point on money, the money was spent obviously looking towards the future, but also to consolidate the Champions League spot. And when we talked about it a week or two ago on the pod about Chelsea and City and these clubs and are they guaranteed the spot? And my feeling at the time was, and it still is that neither of them are guaranteed anything. And for them to go into January and to invest so heavily, like, there's no guarantees. And I think that's the point I'm trying to make on it. And when you look at them at the weekend, I completely agree with you. Like we were having the crack in the group about they wouldn't pass the NCT, the lads in midfield because it's just what you're watching is like when Casemiro looks like solid and there's nobody running past him, that's a midfield that's not great. I'm not being smart, but like Casemiro, I thought actually had a decent game for United, but there was no legs or no runners from midfield really from City to go past anyone. Yeah, and there is, I think,
I will give Amran his due there. He has tweaked the system
yeah,
so that Casemiro, the area he has to cover has been massively reduced compared to what he was initially expecting of him. And since he's done that, there's been a huge upturn in what he's contributing to the team. But yeah, I
yeah,
get your point. He isn't. You would expect him to be challenged for pace or legs with a team
yeah.
of that quality.
Like Yeah, so like I suppose just go through the game like it was a complete bore fest. Garnacho, you mentioned you put it into the WhatsApp and that as well, and I just find with him, it's like he looks like a guy. He's got so much talent, but his end product in particular, since Almiron has come in, he's regressed in that element because I thought he was a bit better under Ten Hag in that final third, and kind of he scored some great cracking goals, but whatever it is, confidence probably been probably a big part of it too, and position is obviously altered from what he'd be used to. But he was frustrated. He looked like the one that if there was going to be a goal in the game, that from United's perspective, that it'd be him. But there was a lot of going through the motions. It's the same old problem for United. The build up has got better, but just no cutting edge in the final third at all. And then City, again, as I said, around the Champions League football and with a lot of the other results that actually went against them at the weekend, like they didn't push or there was no kind of cutthroats to them either. And even the subs that they brought on, they had very little impact in the game. And like serious question marks, as I mentioned a couple of times this season, under what's going on with Foden because he's a shell of that player that was player of the season last year. Like whatever's going on, even his touch, that there was a chance that he had where he had a terrible. He probably that was Foden last year. He would have buried that.
Yeah, he
Um,
hooked it right. And it's
and
kind of,
that's a
I suppose,
yeah,
from a City point of view, like you're seeing De Bruyne leaving. who's been such a not alone an excellent servant and creator, but he has scored big goals at important times for that City team as a leader.
Mm.
And I suppose I always envisaged the Foden that I saw coming through as being the natural successor to that sort of a leadership role. But when the pressure's been on and things haven't been functioning well this season, he hasn't at all been able to step up his game. Like it's such a drastic fall off. It's like he has a serious confidence. He lost confidence with the performances in the Euros and hasn't been able to regain it. But it does leave a serious question mark over that creative outlet. Who's going to be that creative outlet without without De Bruyne next season? Who his
Yeah.
body just isn't able to maintain what it once was like.
No, I think there's definitely quite an element of transition going to be with City. I don't even think the summer will save. Do you know what I mean? It'll take a couple more transfer windows before they're, I think, trying to get back to that level that they were at, where they were unstoppable. There's quite a lot of positions. If you look at it, you're looking at left and right back for starters. They're playing Nunes at right back. I know Pep was kind of complimentary of him, but for me, like he's not a right back. Pep thinks he can't play midfield, but he was bought as a midfielder. He wasn't bought as a right back. So you have to question that when he's coming out now and saying, and he made some comments
I
about
think you'd
him
have to
in the
question
middle.
too, Dan, like, is he at the quality of what City expect from or the quality of player that they want? Like he's clearly not a right back. He doesn't seem to trust him to play in midfield. So it seems like a purchase has really gone astray, and a list added to a list of kind of a collection like Sudoku, Grealish,
Calvin
Savino still has
Phillips.
potential, but Calvin Phillips, like there's a good few
Mm.
signings there that, and looking at players that have been let go and the likes of Morgan Rogers, etc. There is kind of, as much as you're like, oh, they're well-run club, there's kind of cracks emerging this season that maybe we didn't think were there.
I think so. And I suppose, they never really got to grips with it. Now I think if they manage to get Champions League and win the FA Cup, you can't fault that. I know it's a fall off from their standards, but I think that'll be an amazing season based on, I suppose, on the eye. If you go back to the eye test of what you watch this season, like they
Yeah,
just haven't been great, in any aspects of their play, particularly defensively and goalkeeper. Watching the two goalies. How did that game yesterday not have a goal when you had Onana and Ederson, who've been, I don't know what word to use to describe them. Just a mess
yeah.
in regards to goalkeepers this season. They've made so many mistakes or have led to chances and led to goals. Like it's just look, it was a horrifically bad game, and I was looking forward to it. But when I think back now to it, it probably was always going to be something like that. Maybe when you think of the
Yeah.
way I suppose United have been able to score and City have kind of been in and out. But yeah, I think it was one that won't live long in the memory of many people. And it was interesting to see like Neville and like Keane to be going in so hard, like because I suppose they're paid by Sky. There's
Yeah.
massive bucks at stake here, and like Neville in particular was pretty much saying that like this is a joke. This kind of player is afraid to take the ball and move out of position. That it's so kind of stringent now and robotic that like he was kind of saying it's a real negative on the league where I haven't seen too many games like that this season. I don't know about you. I actually thought
I don't.
it's been a
I honestly am so sick of Neville. He just every game himself and Roy Keane just battered him, and I'm like, you're comparing the standard of team you were in, which was top quality players all around you, holding each other responsible and pushing for the highest level all the time, to a team that is full of excuses and passing responsibility. And like they've been saying it for 13 years at this stage, and it just there's no new ways to say what the issues are, but they just can't, like, they never see any positives. Never, like, I've been saying to you that I think I see green shoots, and not necessarily, you might necessarily agree with me, but I do. I feel like you can see what he's trying to do, at least, even though some of the players clearly are not have the right qualities or attributes to fit
mm,
into it. But I can see more structure and understand his structure way more than I ever did under Ten Hag, and can clearly know what he's trying to do. And then they go saying that it's a defensive system. Well, yeah, on face value, it's a defensive system, but like he's renowned for having a left-footed centre back that pushes in midfield, but he doesn't have that now because they're all injured. When he did have it,
mm.
Martinez for creating great opportunities. Like he doesn't want your Casemiro and Ugarte to sit in that deep, but he's adapted his system to confined amount of space that they have to cover to protect their defense. Like, but then they're giving out about them being too open or that they're not being creative enough. So like I feel like they're just battering him from all sides and they're not giving him opportunity. And get Neville is just down in the deepest rut as a United fan and just can't understand why you're 13th. I mean, like if you've watched him for the last 10 years, it's been only going one way. You need to accept that's
Mm.
where you are and stop t- beating the players and talking to them as if they're Champions League quality, winning the league standard. Like you're comparing chalk and cheese, and it's just not fair. I
Yeah.
don't think.
Yeah, yeah. No, no, fair. Yeah, fair. I did think they played like the game against Forest during the week. I thought they played really well and it was one of the better, like in regards in possession, and there was a bit of speed to their play. I thought they were actually quite good and probably unlucky to not get something from that game, you know. So I think there is, yeah, like I think when you look at what they have, they've a fairly average bunch of players that cost an awful lot of money.
Yeah,
He's loaned out a few of them. Like you see, like there's something wrong though when some of them are able to go to other clubs, like McTominay, even Anthony's put in a couple of performances for Betis. But when lads are able to go off, like there's something. Is the club too big? What is it like? There's kind of like why is Rashford now suddenly able to be not the Rashford? I won't say he's the Rashford old, but to be decent. He looks decent. Like
yeah, yeah. And I'll
um,
give you that. But I thought of Brandon Williams. Gave a very interesting interview on Ben Foster's podcast.
he was
So
a left back,
he
wasn't
obviously,
he?
yeah,
He
he
played
came
left, wasn't
through,
he? Yeah,
broke through under Ollie,
yeah.
um, and played left and right back. To be fair to him, mainly right, but he could play left.
Okay.
Came through under Ollie. He's kind of a tenacious enough defender. Like he likes getting stuck in kind of a job, but was quite light. Um, Ten Hag never really seemed to fancy him, but he played for him for about a season and a half. Went out and he's been to went to Norwich on loan, then went to
Mm,
Ipswich, etc. Kieran McKenna had the working relationship with him from being at the club, but in this relation, he actually has completely dropped out of football for the last 12 months.
right.
So he was struggling with the attention that came from. He was a Manchester lad, growing up in Manchester, living in his state, and like he was saying during COVID, he was at lockdown, and these lads were on screen time with him, and they're in their mansions, their private gym, and he was in his
Yeah,
mom's
yeah,
bedroom. But he said that he couldn't deal with the pressure of everywhere he went in Manchester, no matter it was going to shop, whatever it is, people wanted to stop him, people wanted to photograph him, people wanted this. And when things aren't going well, you're getting abuse because of that. And he's
yeah,
like, you're constantly trying, your world was getting smaller and smaller all the time as to where you could go, what you could do, who you could trust, who you could hang out with. He said all his entire personal life was completely affected by it, essentially. And he's like, they basically said, well, imagine if you're Marcus Rashford, because his profile is a whole different
mm.
level, and how that must impact on him. And getting away from that must have some level of freedom attached to it.
But you can see it.
So
Yeah, 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 yeah.
so I don't
But
know
there,
whether the club aren't protecting their players or aren't giving them an opportunity to, I suppose, exist as on a human level,
yeah.
away from that pressure. And when you have all these expos piling pressure on you every week about how poor you are, like they're all on social media to see it. It has to have some sort of effect. But I don't
Mm,
know. Like there has to be internal factors that are contributing to it. It can't all be the external pressure of media because that's always been a thing. And you can see every other major club like Liverpool, etc. Their players are able to manage it, whatever structures they have in place. So
mhm.
I just thought it was an interesting kind of insight as to maybe some of the ills in the culture behind the scenes.
Yeah, but sure, it says there's of course there has to be for him to have been such a drop off like that. But like the ones that are there now in the moment anyway, like I think if Almiron, had a magic wand there, there's a handful that I think he would put faith in that can play the system that he wants to play. So there's a lot of work needed there, and I think it's unfair to kind of judge him based on that he came in what was it November? What was he in? Was he November
Yeah,
time he came in?
November. Yeah,
Like you have to give a full transfer window on a full thing to have a proper maybe judgment on him and his role, I think. But no doubt anyway, it's all about the Europa. That's it. And
it's all about
if
the
that goes
Europa.
asunder, it's I know it's going to impact financially what to be able to spend. But I've heard a few ex-Man United players, not Neville now, but a few others that have said it might be the worst thing in the world that they have to go and look at the youth because they're players that'll be hungry, that'll want to play for the club, that have no fear, as you were saying there about the ones that maybe aren't able for it. A lot of the young players, they don't have fear. So that might be the worst thing if they have to blood in, which they have been blooding in a few as well in recent times as well. A couple of guys there. I can't think of the name of the striker that he played a bit. But in there recently enough.
Obi Martin,
Yeah, there's a couple of lads that
Toby.
they kind of have they have a bit of faith.
Yeah, they do, and
You know.
I think they also would be more malleable to a new system and maybe tweaking the role that they have been working on. But look, we'll move on and we'll move on to the Liverpool game, Dan. I don't know where I'm still a little bit in shock after watching the defending for about a 15-minute spell from quality defenders and experienced defenders. Where what, I think you said some of them might have taken a day's annual leave and just were there and physically not in body. They're there in body, not in spirit. What like where did that come from? Where did that performance come from?
Yeah, there was definitely. I think there was a bit of complacency. Now, there's no doubt. I kind of said last for the pod that game I felt was more dangerous than the Merseyside derby. I thought we'd win the Merseyside derby, but I did think that Fulham eventually would get a result. But I think it would have come the way it would have come. No, like it was really bad from the start. Like, and Kanate was the first head case. And it kind of just, I think, really set the tone for what was to come with the way he was in the first opening few minutes. Uh, yeah, like it was very, very bad for that 15-minute period. Really, kind of it killed the game. And saying that though, like they probably weren't looking to get a draw. Like with Elliott's chance, not too far from the end, but it was they were very complacent. I found anyway.
Yeah.
Whether or not it
And
was got
would
to
you
do with
put
the
that down
result.
to Liverpool being complacent, or was it the Fulham put them under so much pressure at times?
Well, I think Fulham are really good. We struggled against them earlier in the season. If you remember, I know Robertson got sent off early, but like we there's a lot of teams that have struggled against Fulham this year, so I think you have to give them a lot of credit. But what I will say is that there's a couple of things that are beginning to show and have been shown, I think, for the last month, 6 weeks. One being that when Salah isn't on it or whether he's been marked out of the game, who else is stepping up? I think you're kind of seeing there that there's mark over that. In particular, because there was very little until he made the changes. Um, in the game at the weekend. There wasn't an awful lot happening in that forward department. So that's one question. I'd also say that I suppose one that I'm hearing, whether or not it's there's much to it or not, is that Slot had regularly this season played a lot of the same players. He hadn't really where he'd been taking players off and giving them 15-20 minute rests here and there. He was the starting 11 hasn't really shifted too much over the course of the system, over the course of the season. So whether or not that's played into it, I'm skeptical over that one. But I've heard that one being kind of thrown out now, or that some of the players are tired. And you could argue that Salah has played nearly every minute of every game. So if anyone was going to be tired, it potentially could be him. But he doesn't do an awful lot of running. He's not asked to go and track back to the right back area and to help out that much. So I don't know. I think it's hard to kind of put your finger on exactly why there's been a kind of definitely a drop off in from before you would say maybe the likes of the Southampton game or maybe just before that where they definitely weren't at the same level of intensity in their play. Like even Van Dijk there against I thought Van Dijk and Kanate against Everton with Beto were given the run around by him, and I think Muniz, and Beto and Muniz aren't two of the better strikers. No disrespect to them, but they're a handful, but they're not two of the top strikers in the league. And
Yeah.
I think in them last two games, they didn't like the physicality. They were being bullied, and they didn't like it or really stand up to it. I didn't think. And then Andy Robertson, unfortunately, he's been getting away with it for a while because he hasn't been at fault for a lot, but he was very much at fault for one of the goals. It couldn't have
That
went
goal
any
was
worse for him.
hilarious.
It
Where
couldn't
he
go any worse
crossfield
for him.
passed and then went to block it and knocked deflected
Yeah.
it in. I was like, this is not
I,
your day. Like,
no, it's not. And it's not to try and pick too many holes in because again that was their first away defeat, which is madness. Again, I think considering we're in
yeah,
we're in April, that's the first defeat. But again, it does. I think what these things are doing is they're kind of highlighting. For me, Szoboszlai, he's been getting away with it a bit this season. He's been played in every game. I know Elliott was out for a while. He's kind of maybe the only somewhat natural replacement for him, but like he's been terrible in a lot of games this season. But we've had nobody really else that we can bring in. So like you're kind of looking at going right there's a position where you can identify that probably needs to be strengthened. You can pull him off. Even Salah, like when Salah's off it, you know there is a question whether or not he should be taken off too and bring on, a different perspective. Like he probably has got away with it in the last few games where I think back to some of the time when he went off it in February, March under Klopp as well, where you are as a Liverpool fan sitting there going, he's lucky to still be on the pitch. I know he is the moments of brilliance, but you look at the other players that like Chiesa and that as well. Should they just be getting running? And Elliot, like in fairness to Elliot, when he's come on, he's looked decent, this season and
Yeah,
last
he
season.
scored nearly scored an
Yeah,
important an equalizer in PSG. He scored a
yeah,
goal, like as in I can see where you're coming from. And he's a player
yeah.
that's kind of funny. You don't really know. It's kind of is he going to be there next year?
Yeah, I could see him. He's one that I could see. Like it reminds me of the likes of a Harry Wilson. There's been a few that Liverpool have had down through the years that have kind of been on the fringes, but probably are good enough to be playing for a decent side. And I think he could be another one where I could see us milk someone for like 40 million plus in the
Yeah,
summer, and he could potentially move on. I don't know what like I think he's getting very little game time, and so that would quite me. I would question whether or not Slot really fancies him. But there's no doubt anyway over the course of the game, like it was the right result without doubt. And there's a couple of players there like this season that I've watched at left back who I'd love the Liverpool side and Robertson at Fulham and Kirkes at Bournemouth. Like if either of them are available, if they're able to pick up either of them, I think it'd be a massive upgrade. As great as Andy Robertson has been, I just think that position really needs freshening up. And either of them two for me now would be it's showing at the side like that like I suppose for as good as Liverpool have been, there's no doubt that there's areas there that need improvement. And
yeah.
Slot hasn't really bought anyone yet, so it'll be an interesting summer. And there's definitely a question mark over a few and a few positions. And just finally, it was nice to see that the Van Dijk come out and say like that the contract talks are positive and that's moving. It's great to see a player come out and kind of give some sort of an indication as we're in fucking 8th of April, and to say that okay, there's talks, and not that there's not talks going, but that there's some sort of light at the end of the tunnel, hopefully. So it sounds that's quite positive. And the last thing I'll say actually is I read during the week that Kanate. He's only got a year left in his contract. He's looking for 200 grand. So for me, if that was the case, I'd be selling him in the summer too, because for me, he's not worth that.
No, he didn't do himself any favors in this game. Anyway. I suppose there's a couple other big results, but Arsenal Everton. Dan, I'm just going to go straight in there. Was that a penalty in your opinion?
No, it was never a penalty. And the fact even the Harrison, it was a Harrison, wasn't it?
It was Harrison,
he,
yeah.
he got up he got up straight away to play on. He didn't even appeal for it. He kind of was trying to get back to his feet, wasn't he? I think
Yeah.
it wasn't anyway in any way a penalty. And yeah, that's
Do you
just I
think
suppose another
Skelly's kind of reputation, like Skelly's given away quite a few penalties this season, do
red
you think?
cards.
And the right cards, yes. But like, do you think
Mm.
that he kind of has a little bit like maybe his reputation pursued him a little bit and that's what led him to make the call? I don't know. I thought it was a horrendous decision.
We've had a few bizarre ones, Massey. Like look at the challenge that Tarkovsky put in during the week and how that's gone to bar, and that's that like we've
Not
had a few
been
now. Yeah, like there's been a few now recently. Either bad decisions or VAR taking justice feels like an age to make a decision. It's unbelievable. Whatever's going on, it's really bad at the moment. And like it was, there's no doubt anyway. Um, it wasn't a penalty on the balance of the game. I only seen bits and pieces of it and that as well. I think Arsenal are just like that this season though. If they're going to win a game, they're going to scrap a win in a lot of these games where, and it leaves yourself open then to fucking shitty decisions like that.
I
You
do think
know,
that penalty though, like Arsenal have been pretty much in control, and it is
yeah,
a flaw of Arteta's teams that they haven't killed teams off, but like
killed
they
him.
had
Yeah, yeah.
opportunities and it did really reshape the game. But it's another
Mm.
testament to Moisey and what a job he's done since he took over Everton, about
Oh,
stabilizing the
100%.
ship
Yeah,
and bringing
yeah.
like making them so comfortable. Like they're 15th, like they're well removed from any sort of
It,
relegation discussion,
it's
and
amazing
he's
though.
just
Like,
done an excellent job.
yeah, and it's amazing like that. Like he's got such a tune out of Beto. Just when you watch him, like he's got he was a laughing stock. Like people were just like a fucking Beto. He was getting a lot of like kind of slagging that they brought him in. Where did they get this lad from? And then Dak O'Brien, right back. Like you know what I mean? He's pulled a
Yeah,
couple of
and he wasn't fancy. He didn't seem to be fancied at all
no, not at
by
all.
Dyche, like, and he's just been
So
such an
so
integral part of what Moyes has been doing. And he's just the players
exactly.
themselves just look a little bit like they're enjoying the little bit more freedom and like they've improved so much in an attacking sense they are enjoying their football as well. And
Yeah.
it's good. I suppose it's a good send off for Everton, and the way to finish off in Goodison that they have. It's not like a lot scrapping for their lives. They're
Oh,
comfortably,
geez,
they're
no,
safe,
it's amazing.
and
It's
they're there.
yeah,
Like,
it's a huge,
and
and like
for
if you think
Moyes,
about
I
it, under
suppose I think when Moyes was
what?
involved in probably a big reason as to why they have a new stadium, the way he stabilized the club, managed them to be like challenging for top four consistently
Mm.
during his time. When he left them, because it seems to be a little bit poetic that he's there as they transition and move into their new stadium. I think
100%.
maybe that's looking through rose tinted glasses at it, but
No,
I
I think
think
so. I think so, and like you have to remember, like their best player this season, well under Dyche, but like it was McNeil who like has been injured. I don't know, he played all under Moyes. I don't know if he played all under him or did
I
he get
don't know
injured
if he
just at
played.
the start.
No,
But you know that there wasn't too many players that you could pinpoint, bar maybe McNeil in an Everton shirt under Dyche. But like you're there now going, Jesus, and he done well, and hasn't he done well, and you know, it is a testament to them, and like he got them saved so quickly. That's the amazing thing because we were all saying that they're in the scrap, and all of a sudden, within a couple of weeks, they were well out of
yeah,
it, and they're not far. Where are they now? They're probably not far off top 10, are they?
I know they're 15th, but they're what
Or they're
top 10? They
15th.
are.
Oh yeah,
No, they're 10 points, 10 points
that's
off
10,
top
is it?
10.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
That kind of gap that exists there from Crystal Palace, another team that start struggling to start the year, they're up to 11. Like, so
yeah,
it's
yeah.
just did you I really enjoyed John Philippe Mateta's goal.
Oh yeah, watch that game. It's class. It's really good, and that was a
Oh, it was
derby. That was a proper derby.
that
It
was
had
how it should
everything.
be. Nothing quite a derby with a couple of red cards
Oh
as well. Man,
yeah,
it was a great. I really enjoyed that game.
yeah.
And
He's a great
Crystal
player,
Palace
isn't
club
he?
Mateta.
He is. I know
I
he's a bit
think
streaky. Like he goes through runs of kind of where he could go score 5 or 6 in a row and then maybe have a kind of a few games off, whatever like that. But I think he's a really good player. Yeah.
he's the kind of like he blows hot and cold, but like there's a few small links to United, and honestly, he's a ripe age profile for a player at United, like as in he could offer more, and then look, he can develop. But it's what Glasner's been managed to do, especially the second half of the season, when they've got everybody back in, and he's playing with a wing back system. So I'm particularly interested and keeping an
Mm,
eye on Glasner and what's going on there. I just think they
mm,
looked excellent. This was a great game. Brighton easily could have won it as well.
yeah.
But the red cards, like there was no real question. Hintelwood or Van Hecke was involved in it all. Um,
Yeah.
Nketiah, it was an honest mistake. The ball came over. He was looking at the ball. He boot up, but it was a boot straight into the chest.
Oh
It
yeah.
was
He
second
was
yellow.
always getting booked.
He was
Yeah, it
always getting
was.
sent off for
It
that.
felt bad
Yeah,
for him though because it was one of them. He definitely didn't.
yeah. There
There's
was
no intent.
no intent, whatever. But
Mm. But
it
you know
was
what
an
was class
excellent
that
game.
last 10, 11 minutes when there was added on at the end. It was just every time they just hoofed to clear like the crowd. Palace crowd. It's a good atmosphere to create there, isn't it? Like they were just like
Yeah,
really
Sellers
roaring it
is
on. Yeah,
they're nearly on top of the pitch. They're one of the closest
yeah.
teams in terms of fans. But
I,
um, it, it turns it was a big blow to Brighton in terms of their push
yeah.
for top 5 or 6, I suppose.
Mm,
And Crystal Palace again up to 11th, solid mid-table team. Even though their probably hopes are going to be focused now on the FA Cup with their semi-final coming up.
mm,
Another important kind of top Champions League teams or vying for Champions League was the Forest game.
yeah.
Um, this was the strangest game, Dan. First half, Villa were sensational, and then it just felt like Forest just took all the shots that were just like, oh, curled wide, oh, just curled wide. Callum
Yeah.
Guy and Alanga. Just it just wasn't their day in the end, was it?
No, it wasn't. They've had a couple of them for us weird away from home performances where they've kind of conceded a couple of goals quite quickly and been nearly the game over. Do you know kind of way? Yeah, I think Villa, yeah, they were sensational, in particular in the first half. And they have a few just really quality players, and as we've talked about here and waxed lyrical about, they bought a few really good players in January too to help things along. So look, it was a massive win for them, and they look the Champions League is back now, so we'll see. But they have been one that I think have started to really get their shit together. There was a while ago there they were ninth or tenth, I think, and they were a bit
Yeah.
off it, but now suddenly they just crept back into it. Emery's bought well, they're a lot more attacking threat. They're not as reliant on Watkins as they were as well for goals. So yeah, I think look, it was
Yeah,
a it was a
they're
blow to
two
far.
point behind City. They're only a point behind City and two
Yeah,
points behind Chelsea in fourth.
And they play City in
Although
2 weeks, I think.
and they play City in 2 weeks, which will be
Yeah.
a real test, and it'll be a tough time between Champions League games for them as well.
Mm.
But and I suppose the last real team that really were pushing for this and look kind of in pole position are Newcastle. They had a very comfortable 3-0
Uh, yeah.
3-0 win against Leicester on Monday night.
Yeah. I'm going to say that they'll get one now, 100%. I think they get one. So I actually think that they'll get, I think Forest and Newcastle, and I think it'll be a toss of the coin between Villa, City, and Chelsea for the fifth one. I actually think Newcastle, this is just based on like Gordon is back, I think, now, isn't he, after his ban? He'll be back.
Yeah, he should be
I
back.
think,
Yeah,
yeah, and not that they've missed him really, but I think I looked at it. They've United and Palace in the double game week that they have coming up, and they're both at home. And I just think if they can keep Isak fit, which is managed to do, like they scored 3 goals last night, without him really doing a tap, really. So I do think that they get one. I do. I just think that the momentum is really behind them. When you look at their starting team, they don't really have too many injuries at the moment. I know they're missing Hall and Botman, but this Livermento is a quality player, and he's a good operator that I think is fitted in nicely there. And they look solid, and their starting 11 is probably not too far off as strong as a lot of the other teams in the air in regards work rate, endeavour, and quality. Then, and they have the best striker in the league. So for me, if they can keep him fit, Gordon is going to come back into the side now as well, and they've got a great tune out of Murphy. I think that they'll definitely get one. I think they'll definitely get one. I think they'll beat United and Palace. And I think when we look at the table in a week or two's time, you could have a small little push and potentially to fifth too.
if they were to do that, they're really going to put pressure on Forest. They're on one win, like they have a
Yeah,
game in
true.
hand
Yeah.
that'll put them on a point behind Forest, and so they really could battle
Yeah.
for third if they keep up that form. I think it's a sign of a team of what confidence is flowing through them, though. When your
Mm.
fullback and Fabian Schär is shooting from his own half, trying to chip
Yeah.
the keeper, it was an unbelievable attempt to hit the crossbar, and Murphy
Was.
finished it up in
Yeah.
the rebound. But I just thought it was a real sign of a team that are have a lot of confidence flowing through it at the minute.
Yeah. Yeah. When you look at
Um,
that midfield, Massey, the midfield three when it's fully operating
yeah,
with Jolinton,
any of us would
Bruno, and
take them.
Tonali. Oh,
Any of us
absolutely.
would take them. Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think
Yeah.
Tonali's an absolute gem of a footballer, and since he's dropped to that deeper role, they've just hummed lovely. And
Yeah.
Gomeris gets the crowd going, gets stuck in, and Joe Linton's just a workhorse in that midfield. And
Yeah.
they're physical and they're excellent. They're really. I think Eddie Howe, um, even the likes of Jacob Murphy, who was a
Mm.
player you would have thought around the fringes, like the tune he's
Very
managed
much
to
in the
get out of
fringes.
them
Yeah.
and development out of them. Um, and like you kind of would have been always say, oh, he's a squad player, like but
Mm.
himself and Isak have built a great relationship this year. He's assisted Isak more than any other Newcastle player for goals, and he's also been chipping in, especially particularly since January. He's been on the score sheet more than often. So fair play to Eddie Howe, and it'll be interesting to see if they can take that jump and get secure
What do you
Champions League.
think in regards to if you were to look at? So we have, say, I don't. Do you think Forest will definitely get one?
I
Or
think
are you still
Forest.
iffy
I
about
think
them?
I wasn't so convinced Newcastle. I always feel like Newcastle have the ability
Yeah.
to shoot themselves in the foot. But I feel like getting over Liverpool in the Carabao Cup is kind of a mental hurdle that they've overcome that we can do this, and I feel like it'll be what will push them on to get
Yeah.
the fourth spot. After that, then
Yeah.
I fancy City and Chelsea to drop it to sixth, but
Mm.
Villa are on a serious hot streak at the minute. I just think that Champions League will take its toll, and it has all season affected
Yeah.
their Premier League games after.
And they're
So
still in the FA Cup as well. That's
and the
another
FA
like.
Cup, so they like they could really put focus in on the FA Cup and try and do that's guarantees them Europa
That's
League
kind
then.
of why I think though as well. And like Newcastle just have a straight run at it now. Like no other distractions. Like Forest have to play City in an FA Cup tie as well. Villa and then Chelsea. I know it's the conference, but like it's still another distraction. They still have to go and travel here, there, and everywhere. So I don't know. I have just a feeling of a straight run and a near enough fit side. And I just think that they'll outwork an awful lot of teams, and that they're a very tough team, especially at home to beat. So, yeah, for me, I thought just I'm very convinced on them now as well,
It's
and
been an exceptional
you
season.
know,
If for new Freddie Howe, if they're able
mm,
to take a cup and
100%.
Champions League.
Yeah,
Um, Dan, you've raised this question a few times, and I said we might as well throw it out there. Are these the worst three Champions League or worst three teams to be relegated, or the most
Yeah.
underperforming. What is your take? Because this has been bandied about that Southampton are the earliest to be relegated in terms of games remaining.
Mm,
Leicester haven't scored a goal in I don't even know how long. It must be 8, 10 games at this stage.
mm.
And you're looking at Ipswich, who've been the best of a bad lot, but I still think that they're the right. It's right that they should be going back down based on their performances.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I think, and like the gap you can see over the last couple of years has definitely got bigger between the teams that come up and trying to remain in the league. But I do, yeah, I don't know. Like, again, it can be kind of short sighted in that there was some very bad teams that played in the Premier League down through the years. There's been plenty
That
of them.
Derby team in particular always stays in my mind.
Yeah, Derby were quite bad. There was, and then there's been a few
Paul
like kind of
Jewell credits it as often references as a point that killed his career as a manager.
right, yeah, but like so it has been, but there it's what you're watching, I guess. Like Leicester have just been hopeless, and I think I was kind of saying to you before we started the year, like when you think of what Van Nistelrooy did in that short little cameo at United, where his stock was definitely higher after the couple of games, and then taking the Leicester job. And I know there was the question mark in January. The talk was that they were supposed to give a few pound, and they didn't. But still, with what they have, I don't think it should be as bad as it's been. The fact that they can't even score a goal. Is it seven without a goal now? That is six or
Definitely
seven, I
seven or
think.
eight. It's
That like
horrendous.
that's just like you think even you jam one. Do you know what I mean? Like
Somehow
somewhere along the
it
line. Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They got 7 goals. They scored two against Spurs, and then they've gone one,
Mm.
two, three, four, five, six, seven, 7 games since. So
Seven,
two
yeah,
goals,
like
14
that's
games with no scoring a goal. You have no hopes
like
then, like.
what no, but whatever about losing games, but they're not even Lisa Hampton are they're chipping in the odd time getting a goal. They got a random draw against Palace. Like Leicester just been it's oh I don't know, it's been really
It's
bad.
really. Do you think that they will stick with him, or will he leave at the end of the season?
Oh, I'd say I don't know. It wouldn't even surprise me that it's that bad, and the fact that their relegation is probably going to be announced soon as well. If it even got to the end of the season, you could see maybe even a case that like what's happened to Hampton's manager's gone, isn't he? He's gone now.
You're
He
rich.
got the.
You're rich is
You could
gone.
see
Yeah.
something similar, like whether not to just decide, look, part ways. It can't get any worse, really, can it? Like to lose every week and not
Yeah,
score a
and
goal.
it
Do you know what I mean?
really, like, Leicester
Yeah,
really need to stay up because with their relegation, it's going to bring back up the championships body, the EPL.
yeah.
Want to follow up with them in terms of points deduction because they got
Because
off
they
to
were
technical.
lucky, weren't they, to avoid one, weren't they?
So
Didn't they?
technically, by the time it came in, they were promoted and they were in the chat. They were Premier League because it wasn't came till August or something. So they're Premier League team, so they couldn't apply the rules to them because it was technically they were no longer under their jurisdiction. So I think that is still possible. It's not past the statute of limitations essentially. So that could be an
You
issue for
reckon
them
they
as well
are?
when they go back down.
You reckon they'll be in trouble?
I reckon I've heard a couple of like
Yeah,
past comments made about how it could affect. So look, I don't know. I think with Jamie Vardy up front, I know he's an agent, Jamie Vardy, if and the likes of Buenanote in that team, they should be able to score goals. Um, I think
yeah.
defensively they're lacking an awful lot, and I don't know
Oh,
whether
very
that
much
has
so.
impacted it in that they've tried to play in a more defensive way to protect a very vulnerable defense, and therefore are
Yeah.
unable to score goals. But when you
Do you
think of the
know?
likes of Moyes coming in and making a team like Everton more attack minded, Moyes is not
Mm,
exactly what you'd expect to be when you're depicting a team that are attacking and creating chances. Um, you kind of when you hear Van Nistelrooy, you expect them to be a free, at least goal scoring team, and it just hasn't happened at all.
y- yeah, you'd worry though as well when you look at it, what you mentioned about the financial fair play. Usually, when a team goes down, there's a couple of players that will generate a few pounds. When you look
Mm.
at the Leicester team, I don't really see that. Your man Tyler Dibden would probably go for silly money from Southampton. They'll get a few pound out of
There's a
him.
few, yeah, like
Ipswich
Taylor
have a
Howard
couple,
Ellis,
Delap, or
yeah,
there's a couple of lads.
um,
Yeah, and so yeah, your man, yeah, as well. He's another one. But like you look at Leicester, there's not too many of them sitting there going. I could see them going for a chunk of change to kind of help with any,
any financial issues. Yeah, no, I
bar
don't know. It's gonna
no,
and like it's funny the fans have turned on those boos, etc. Understandably so. When you've been watching such tripe for so long, you
mm,
can only stay patient and supportive so long. But
yeah,
yeah, it look, it's
and they've spent
definitely
a few
been
pounds. like it doesn't mean I know like it's all relative, and again we're in different times in regards money in what other championship clubs have spent. But I remember looking at it there a month or two ago, and like the likes of Ipswich have spent, they're one of the highest spenders I think of
They're the highest
championship
net
clubs that
spenders,
have come
yeah.
up. Yeah, do you know, and
After
it's a
Brighton, I think,
fair
yeah.
yeah, it's a fair amount of money that was invested. Now, I think I was listening to Scholes talk about it. Like he thought that'd be a bit more like maybe a Blackpool kind of you know, or like for a while they win one week and lose the next. But it definitely I don't know what the statistics are, but it just feels to me that Ipswich have gone ahead in so many games and then lost
Yeah,
league to
I
winning
think that's the
positions.
killer for Ipswich. I think they put themselves in winning positions in count like 5 to 8 games this season where they were in positions to win and conceded
Yeah.
something to lose or draw in the last 2, 3 minutes. And like
Mm.
not alone are they're killers for morale, and they also make you nervous anytime you do take the lead. So I think that I think Ipswich are definitely the best team. They play the best football. They're weak
Mm.
defensively, but a huge amount of their problems have come from their goalkeeper situation, where they spent money on Muric, and he's was a terrible
Oh,
boy. And then he's been dropped, and
10
they
million,
brought
yeah.
in their second choice keeper, and he
Yeah.
had a howlers at the weekend, and you're just looking at it going like you need a good goalkeeper in the Premier League, like um, uh, and you can't make those types of basic errors at all. I feel like Ipswich were definitely the closest, and if one or two of those games had they managed to hold on, I feel they'd be in the mix with Wolves battling for it, but there wasn't to be.
Yeah.
And although they have spent a lot of money, I always bring that back that 2 years ago they were playing in Division One, League One, and that
Yeah.
they went back to back promotion. And you're talking about a
Yeah.
mixture of squads that are Premier League quality players bought in and League One quality players who are trying to step up a level, and that trying to merge and marry those two different qualities to get a functional team the way McKenna wants to play has been
Yeah.
ultimately a challenge he wasn't able to overcome.
Just on him though as well. I think they would have though, even with the probably have to sell on a few of the players even that they bought potentially that will be so like maybe the lap or whatever. But you'd still feel confident enough that if nobody else comes in and steals McKenna away from Ipswich, that going down that he would be the right man and to get them potentially back up maybe next year again,
Yeah,
wouldn't
I
he?
really rate him. I think he's an excellent manager. He probably doesn't have like that charisma of maybe your top managers. I don't think, but I think he's very interesting when you see him interviewed. Speaks very well. Has had
Mm.
like a tough path in football, and he expects and demands high standards of his players. So I honestly hope that they do respond really well and come back up because they do play good
Mm.
football. And he with his United connections and stuff, I'll always have a soft spot for McKenna. But Dan, we better move on to Champions League
Mm.
predictions. Two
Yeah,
tonight. Um, Arsenal, I suppose this kind of overlap a small bit with our Super Six, I think, because
yeah.
some of these games are in our Super Six, who at the minute has been a family affair for yourself, Dan, at the top of the table, isn't it?
Yeah, is this Super Six, is it?
Yeah, Super Six.
Yeah, I messaged my brother there at the weekend and said I'm coming. He's been like leading since the start, but it's the closest I think that any like as in any
You're down
I
to what,
remember in a
14
while ago.
points between you.
I was like 45 points behind him there though, like back a couple of months ago. It was and it just chipped away. So yeah, he's still there leading it, but it's very tight. Like no more than our fantasy football which we got as well. Like both of them are they're very hotly contested, aren't they? When you look even at Super Six there as well.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, it isn't so hotly contested when you forget to put in your scores. That doesn't help a lot. My first week to miss
I was
in this
surprised at
end of the
I was
season.
surprised. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just a busy weekend and it got away from me. But look, we'll run through them quickly, the Super Six, and then we'll do
Yeah.
the opposite way to normal, because since we're on it.
Mm,
Our Super Six predictions. Arsenal and Real Madrid tonight, Dan. This is
yeah.
a tough one to call, but what are you going for?
It's just when you look at this, like I think Arsenal have been very good and solid at home in the Champions League this season.
Yeah.
So you take that into account, and again, probably again eggs in baskets. You'd imagine that this is they've got to the quarterfinal on plenty of occasions, so it'll be a big step forward, especially if they were to knock out probably the biggest team left in it. So, but when I just looking at their starting lineup tonight, I think that like Gabriel for me is one of the best defenders in the league. Like I think himself, Saliba and Van Dijk, there's not much between the three of them. I think at the moment in regards. levels. So I think he's it's like he war is a quite a big downgrade from him.
Massive
But
downgrade, yeah.
yeah, and I just when again you see Moreno leading the line as much as I know he's chipped in with a couple, but when you see Rudiger there at centre back and that Asensio lad has been very good actually when I watched him, he's looked like a proper defender as well. Like there's so much experience in that Madrid side. You'd expect them to come to the Emirates, and I think they'll leave with a positive result. I still struggle to see where Arsenal are going to get goals from, and again, and I'll wait to be proven on this. But like Saka was out for such a long time, and the way that he came off the bench, and scored on his first game back, but he can't he can't be at the level that he was at. Based on how long he was out for, he's not. He has to be still ring rusty. So like it's hard to kind of look past. Definitely Madrid win over the two legs, but even tonight, when I look at that starting team for Madrid, I think Madrid should be able to do the job on Arsenal tonight. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm kind of the same ilk. I've kind of gone 2-1
Yeah, me
in
too.
terms of
Super six.
Madrid, and
Yeah,
you're just looking at it there like a Kipior,
look at
like
this
he's
side.
such a downgrade. I'm kind of surprised. I thought Ben White might be brought in just to protect Miles Lewis Skelly against the
Mm.
likes of Rodrigo or Vinicius, like, but um, or even I thought they might dabble with Ben White at centre back because he has experience there instead of QPR, but they've left him on the bench and that's what they've gone with. So look, I think when you look at those two teams, they've left Modric to start in midfield, so it'll be slow and controlled. But I
Yeah,
kind
like
of
when you
expect,
look at Madrid's team, like for me, seven at least of Madrid's starting 11 are world class players. They're not just
yeah,
good, world class.
yeah, yeah,
Take the goalkeeper. Valverde for me is world class. Rudiger, look at midfield, Bellingham, Modric, Mbappe Jr. Like they are. And then you look at like Martinelli. I don't know. I just when you look at the two sides, and I know that's not always the way football goes. Of course, it's not. But just when you watch on paper, then they're what's on show tonight. Madrid would be fancying their chances, surely, of going to the
yeah.
Emirates and winning.
They have to, they have to. I think they'll be expected, and to be honest, Real Madrid usually do the job in the Champions
Mm.
League. So I'd be shocked if it's any other result other than a Real Madrid win.
Sorry,
Um,
Howard.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll soften the blow to tell them in advance. In terms of Inter Milan and Bayern, it's again tonight. I think this is a tough game to call. Bayern at home.
Mm.
Um, Bayern are a strange team. I don't really know what to make of them. They lost some strange games in the league phase in terms of Aston Villa, etc. They batter teams where they hold the ball, like pin them in, and they break rapidly on the counter and score goals against them because they play such high lines, and they're also got a
Yeah.
central. They've got Eric Dyer at centre back, which is always going to leave me concerned. So although Bayern at home, I think this might suit play into Inter Milan's hands. They're very experienced. They're excellent on the counter. They'll happily soak up pressure, and then pounce. So I'm leaning towards Inter in this game. Um,
Yeah.
tight, maybe 2-1 or 1-0.
I think over the two legs, I'm not sure about tonight's game. I have 1-1 for tonight. I think over the two legs, I'd fancy Inter to go through. Be with you there. I just think, like, not even just the Eric Dyer thing, but I just for some reason can't seem to warm to that Vincent Company would potentially go on and win the Champions League with Bayern Munich, considering the shambles that he was last season. So
Well, now there
yeah,
is a lot of pressure on them as well because the final is in
massive.
Bayern.
Yeah. There is. But I would be in the Inter camp. I think. I think it's a 50-50 game. Over the two legs, you could say that one definitely could go either way. But for me, I think Inter might be able to take a positive result of some description back and dog it out back in the San Siro and get over the line. They have some good players. Jamal Martinez, isn't he? He's a lad that's just been whacking them for years, hasn't he? He just always seems to be.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they are missing.
Ahead of the line.
Demarco is out injured, which is a big blow.
Yeah, left back. Yeah,
He'll
yeah,
step down, and he's a wing back, like so he creates scores and creates a lot. But yeah, when you're looking at there, I'm
yeah.
looking at Mkhitaryan still playing for them. Matteo Darmian, two old United heads there.
See, Musiala's out as well. He's a big loss.
He went off injured, yes, and like
Yeah,
he's the golden boy
he's a
of
good
German
player.
football, so he's a
Yeah.
will be a big loss.
Mm.
Um, Yeah, so it'll be
It's
interesting.
tight, I think, don't it?
And
Tight.
Alfonso Davis. I knew there was another one who got injured recently, but
Yeah.
so that's there. Yeah, it's going to be tight, but I just feel maybe the same as yourself over the two legs. Inter will have enough.
Oh,
Um, Inter soup. We'll fly through the other ones quickly. So
yeah.
then the third one is Middlesbrough and Leeds for some reason. So
Yeah.
our
I did. I had
friend
a
of the
quick
pod,
gawk at it.
Len. is hoping that something's going to happen because Leeds are slipping down that league.
Yeah, I've gone 2-1 Leeds, but like I was close to going for a draw because I think Leeds have been struggling, and Middlesbrough actually have they got a few good results recently. They kind of
They
got
have, yeah,
better.
yeah. They're kind of a team
So
that have been in and around the playoffs all year, just below them,
yeah,
just below them. So Michael Carrick's doing an excellent job there. I have it down. I've gone for the draw. I've gone for the 2-2 draw, high
you
scoring
want
draw.
2-2 draw. Yeah, I was
Yeah,
close to going for 1-1. Yeah, I think it's that's another one though as well where we could be looking at this. It's then when the men was on this, like Leeds were that it wasn't
they were
so up,
running away
but
with
like
it, and then they done a Leeds on
they're,
it, and they managed to go out a third. Like they're now in
they're
playoff
like a
position. It's
third,
crazy.
and the other two sides above them look solid. Do you know what I mean? As in, it's they're the ones with momentum, I think. And geez, when we mad like Leeds end up in the playoffs and not after where they were again, it's not going to be a real Leeds thing, wouldn't it?
It would be very
Yeah,
Leeds. The other two Champions League games I feel are easier. Oh, well, I feel they're easier to
yeah.
call. PSG, Aston Villa tomorrow night.
Yeah, I'd be concerned based on what they did to Liverpool over two legs, and as good as Villa have been, I think if they, I can't see anything other year than PSG when I actually come to the win to nil. I've gone 2-0 PSG, which gives Villa a chance in the second leg. I hope for Villa's sake that they're not pumped and that it's over, in the first leg, that there's something left to play for. But I just have a feeling when you look at Villa defensively this season, they haven't been great, and that front couple up there for PSG are just they're electric. So yeah, I've gone 2-0 PSG, but I'd love Villa to come away with something. Emery, I suppose I'm putting the faith in Emery in Europe that he can pull something out of the bag, and that they'll have something to play for anyway in Villa Park.
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning towards PSG, but I really like Emery and what he's done. But I feel like if PSG performs to the level that they're 6 games off going the entire season unbeaten in the League One, and they are basically looking for considering a quadruple if they can keep going to the Champions League.
Mm.
So like they're and they've a serious work ethic to go with their talents. I really would
Yeah,
fancy them, especially at home in the first leg. Barcelona, big Borussia Dortmund. I fancy this to be Barcelona comfortable enough 1-2-0
yeah.
at home as Dortmund. Just aren't the Dortmund of old, I don't think.
No,
And
yeah,
we're
I've gone
fortunate
3-1,
last year
but
to get the time.
yeah, I've gone 3-1, but because Barca have, I think, been scored plenty of goals in the Champions League. And Dortmund, yeah, they're not at that level. They still think though it'll be a very open game. It could be more than 3-1. It could be like 5-2. You wouldn't fucking know with the two teams. Like another Benfica,
There's such
Barcelona
a high
job, but
line paid by Barca, you never know. Like,
yeah, yeah, gone
at
three
the, at
three
the
one
end, he
anyway.
could enjoy that, all right.
And do
I
you know
don't
what?
know.
It'd be great if it ended up in a Barcelona Inter semi. It'd be really interesting because it'd be two completely contrasting styles there as well. So it'd be a very interesting watch that if that was the case. But yeah, Barca for me over the two legs as well. Definitely.
And then the last game, which is I never thought I'd be caught with Barcelona and Borussia Dortmund, followed up by Coventry and Portsmouth, but they're all the same one. So I
Had a
haven't a
quick look
clue
at
with this one,
this.
Dan.
No, I had a quick look. Just the commentary had been flying under Frank and like looked like they will get a playoff place. I think I think he got
They're
sent off.
pushing
I
for
think
it,
did he at
yeah.
the weekend. But he
Yeah, they're pushing for it.
they're definitely pushing, and but I think Portsmouth aren't too bad. As in recently anyway, that they were. There's a look here. I think when I looked at this, they were not doing well in the league, but no, actually, no, they're not great.
They no,
Yeah, no,
they're
it's not
15th.
Portsmouth. It was some. Yeah, yeah, it was somebody else. No,
18th.
not Portsmouth. I've gone for Coventry to win anyway. I just let me check and see what it was. Yeah, no, I've gone 2-1 Coventry. Yeah, they seem to be solid enough, and Lampard again. Whether or not it remains to be seen if it's maybe championship is his level, but if he manages to get them in the playoffs and if he managed to get them into the Premier League, it'd be some job.
Yeah, absolutely. Dan, we'll finish off this evening with our hotly contested fantasy football league. It's coming into the last couple of weeks and it's all to play for.
Yeah, all to play for a big shout out to the two. Where was it? Yeah, like the Brian O'Sullivan. Interestingly, he played his assistant managership. So he still had that one in the back pocket. So he went for Eddie Howe and got a nice juicy 11 points for that based on last night keeping a clean sheet, scoring a couple of goals and winning the game. So a big shout out to him. He got 66 points. And the poet as well actually had a good week, got 65 as well. But it was funny. It was looking like a fairly dour affair for most because it's a weird setup because of the top five that are there. Four, my brother was the only one who didn't have Jacob Murphy last night. He had Eze, I think, instead or whatever. But it's when you look at the top five there, majority of them have the same strikers.
Yeah,
Most of the same midfielders, given that there's a double game week coming up. So there's only two or three players that are kind of the differentials. So as tight as it is there, you'd imagine it's going to continue to be tight-ish. Given that there's only two or three players really, of impact, and the captain being another one as well. Like people might question there, like I seen someone gone for Isaac, someone gone for Salah at the weekend, and I imagine with the double game week coming up, Isaac will be highly sought after for captaincy as well. But it's tight there. There's still a few chips left to be played, like triple captains and free hits for a few and stuff. But I'd envision that, like, not saying that the people below can't get into it as well, but it should be tight enough there up until the wire when you look at the sides that everybody has now at the present moment. Anyway, like they're quite similar.
yeah, yeah. No, it's tight there at the top, lads. And Dan, as your brother, I wasn't going to bring it up, but he's just gone 3 points ahead of you. Is that
Yeah, he's 3 points. Yeah, that's 3 points. He had Eze at the weekend, and I had Sar. Now I got Murphy, so it looked a lot worse to be honest with you, Mossy, than it did. So I was quite happy last night that at least I'm only three behind him because it would have been otherwise probably like 23. So, but yeah, he's been creeping and creeping. It's so funny because at the start of the season he wouldn't speak about fantasy football because he was in so shit, and sure now he's
you can't shut him
sending
up?
me sending me messages that he's got ahead in our head to head, things that So as I said on the pod here, and I'll say it again, like this man would literally burn his own club to the ground to win fantasy football. That's how much he wants it. So, yeah. So anyway, it's going to
Kind
be
of
real fierce tight
dedication you want to
anyway.
hear, Dan, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, but I was going to say finally on that. Oh, what was it? Yeah, so it's double game week this week. Which means that Newcastle and Palace play twice. So I'm sure if you haven't already strategized that, you'll be looking to get them players into your team. Yeah, they play each other though, so it's kind of a weird one that way as well because they'll end up having potentially six players in that mid. I think it's their midweek game. I think that one isn't it? United
Yeah,
first, and that's the midweek one. So yeah, what about the stake as well? Actually, I haven't looked at that. How's the stake looking? You were catching Howard, weren't you?
I
Who's
was,
going to be
but
buying the stake?
I had an awful week this week. I didn't even look at Howard. I'd say he's fine. He's run away with
Oh, Moss, I'm looking at here. Yeah,
it. Awful week.
22 points is just what good. Is it? Who's your captain? Oh, yeah, Salah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
the
you have an
boy who
expensive defence as well, and not a sniff of a clean sheet. Not a sniff of it.
no, not
No.
a swift with.
So what are we
No,
looking? You're
it's going to be bad. It was a bad week. Yeah, look, it'll be fine. Bruno is probably going to be is have to make way. Just trying to be a loyal United fan, but like, I don't know what I'm going to switch him in, but he'll have to be
Howard.
switched.
Howard got Howard.
Howard probably. I'd say Howard seems to be
Oh,
back in the
Howard
win
used to
thing.
spend. It's weird. It's weird though. I don't know
He
why he
got 60
used.
points.
Yeah, but it's weird. He used his bench boost
But
for the
he
double
got
game week.
19 points down.
Yeah, true. Yeah,
He got Rogers and
suppose.
Flecken.
But he used to be for the double. Interesting. Okay. 60 points for Howard. So that's definitely not done you any favours there at all. Have you anything left to
No,
play? No, 10 points.
no, I don't think so. Very little anyway.
Yeah,
I've just admitted it, I've accepted it's going to happen, Dan, and it's fine. On that delightful,
on
depressing
that.
note, we better wrap this up and go watch some Champions League football.
Excellent.
Guys, thanks for joining just this evening, watching our Football Fanatic podcast, episode 70. Feel free to watch or to follow us, subscribe, etc. on YouTube and Spotify. For those who win, the winner of the fantasy football is going to be getting their own jersey of choice, and the winner of our Super Six is getting €100 in cold hard cash. Dan, it's been a pleasure. Anything else you want to add before we wrap it up?
No, 100% just that Leeds are gone one up, so we know what's going to happen next.
It's going to be 4-3 against Leeds. All right. Good night, lads.
All
Thanks a
right,
million.
cheers, folks. All right.